What's going on, guys? I figured it's been a while since I've done like a countdown top 10 or top 15 or whatever. But this is going to be my top 16 movies of all time. And for those of you who don't know, I'm quite a big movie buff. You guys know I'm a metal mark. I'm big on wrestling. I'm also big on movies and TV shows. So let's just go ahead and jump into things here. Number 16 is Heavy Metal, a sci-fi cartoon film with aliens and lots of nudity and an awesome soundtrack. The movie in general is just awesome. Number 15 is Evil Dead, the 2013 Evil Dead. This movie is a fantastic remake of the original Evil Dead in the 1980s. While the 80s one was awesome, it almost seemed more like a comedy rather than a horror film, and that just isn't really what I at least was looking for when I'm trying to watch something fearful or dark. And the 2013 remake did an amazing job at limiting the comedy and really keeping viewers on the edge of their seats. It's the perfect elements of horror, gore, suspense, and a very small touch of comedy made for a great movie. Especially the end where it's literally raining blood. It's a great film. Number 14 is Silence of the Lambs. Now, Silence of the Lambs is different than your ordinary horror movie. It's a film that doesn't really need to have many horrific scenes or even gore to keep viewers on the edge of their seats. It's more about the suspense, the build-up, and the psychology. And the ending scene where Clarice is in Buffalo Bill's basement it's really the one scene that gets the hairs on your neck to stand up. They do a great job at adding that element of suspense, especially in that scene, because you don't really know what's going to happen, and as well as the psychological eeriness and everything in general. It's a slow build-up, but it's definitely worth it. Number 13 is Troy. I'm a real mark for ancient civilizations and history, so this movie has to be on the list. Also because it tells an incredible story that ends in quite the tragedy, something that is supposedly based on real events. This movie is a great depiction of a historical time period. Number 12 is Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. What can I say? I'm a sucker for fantasy. This movie was awesome. It told an epic story of this fantasy kingdom, which was just total awesomeness. And I will say that I wasn't much of a fan of the other Narnia movies, although the books are pretty cool. But this movie was done incredibly well and was quite popular when I was younger. Number 11 is Labyrinth. It's the 80s. David Bowie's this magical goblin king who has captured this teenage girl's baby brother, and now she's got to go through a maze full of weirdness and goblins to save him, and she goes through quite the bizarre series of events. Watching this movie as a little kid was total awesomeness. It's just like, it's weird. It's so weird that it's cool. Number 10 is The Wild One. Marlon Brando is one of my favorite actors of all time, so putting him in this biker classic was destined for greatness, me being a mark for motorcycles. So it was cool to see that old school biker gang take over a town, and the badass Brando in the biker jacket, the badass attitude on the old school bikes. It was awesome. Number 9's Pokemon Jirachi Wishmaker. Believe it or not, I'm still quite young, and I was actually a kid when this movie came out, and I've always been, and always will be, a true Pokemon fan. At least the original Pokemon. This movie was one of the best. It was one of the best Pokemon movies I'd ever seen, at least, next to the very first one, in maybe 2000. The emotion that the Pokemon movies were able to show, man, I get chills just thinking about it. I'm not an overly emotional dude, so that says a lot. Number 8 is The Den, a unique horror depiction about something that can actually happen if you're not careful enough, whether on the surface web, the normal internet, or even the deep web. This really had me on the edge of my seat, and has quite a few graphic scenes in it. And it even kept me off the internet for a couple of days in fear. I stopped using chat roulette for that reason. But yeah. Number 7 is Apocalypse Now, an amazing representation of the psychological damage of the Vietnam War and what it caused the soldiers to experience. This movie depicts it perfectly. The darkness of what happens in war is shown in so many ways, and I freaking love this movie. It's amazing. It's got Marlon Brando in it too. It's awesome. Number 6 is Mortal Kombat the movie. Oh man, this movie was badass. Being a fan of the games, I love this movie. All the fight scenes and the action, it was sick. Such a kick-ass movie. Number 5 is The Neverending Story. This movie was supposed to be a kid's movie, but the weird mix of this bizarre 80s cosmic themed, corny, but deep elements made this quite a disturbing film. Disturbing in a cool way. The movie's super trippy. It's so bad and ridiculous that it's actually pretty good. Something that I wouldn't mind showing my future kids one day. You know. Number 4 is Nosferatu. 20s classic depiction of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Max Schreck as Nosferatu was perfect. He had that look, that absolutely terrifying look, that he actually looked like a freaking vampire. And putting him with the makeup on and everything, it was terrifying. This movie is indeed a classic, not to mention I'm a mark for Victorian vampire movies. Fuck Twilight. Number 3 is The Godfather. Speaking of a classic, Marlon Brando yet again in this classic badass Italian mob family film. This is a film you have to watch to know how awesome it is. Number 2 is Easy Rider. Such a simple film with such a deep meaning. Two bikers in the 60s riding their classic choppers down the American highways, the lifestyle, the freedom, a freedom that many people hate because they don't have. One of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Number 1 is The Crow, the ultimate film. A man who lost everything, who was broken, comes back to seek vengeance on those who tore his life apart. The overall 90s gothic, dark, alternative atmosphere of this movie is just total awesomeness. Rest in peace, Brandon Lee. And that concludes my top 16 movies of all time. Thank you guys for watching. You can comment whatever movies are your favorites if you like. Feel free. I wouldn't mind checking your comments out. And thanks for watching.